My name is Mike Onadakis, Executive Director for Ohio Right to Life, and Stephanie Kreider, Director of Legislative Affairs, is with us here as well. And thank you for being here. It's arguably one of the most significant days for Ohio Right to Life, Ohio's pro-life movement in quite a long time as we hope to protect women and children, both born and unborn. I'd like to take a minute and thank Speaker Bill Batchelder for his leadership and the ability for us to be here today and his unwavering support of life. And I'd also like to thank Chairman Lynn of the Health Committee, as we're going to be working with him a lot going forward as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Ohio is a pro-life state. All of the polling demonstrates that, whether it be polls from us at Ohio Right to Life or national polls or other interested party groups. As a matter of fact, 71% of Ohioans oppose taxpayer funding of abortion. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. According to the Ohio Department of Health, which by law they have to release abortion statistics every year, we're making significant progress on the issue of abortion. We're at the lowest level of the number of abortions in our state's history since we started reporting in 1976. But we're not here to celebrate any of that because we still had tragically 28,000 abortions in Ohio last year. So we think with these three bills we're going to introduce today and the leadership of these men and women, we're going to continue to decrease that number and ultimately, and hopefully, we'll have the Ohio Department of Health's annual report someday say nothing to report this year, which is the ultimate goal. The three bills that are being introduced have wide support, not just here in Ohio, but nationally. For instance, Americans United for Life, the Ohio Christian Alliance, the Catholic Conference. It's even bipartisan with Democrats for Life supporting our initiatives here. Our affiliated chapters from Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Dayton, Akron, Mercer County, Lima, Allen County. They're all on board. Ohio's pro-life movement has come together with one loud voice to support these men and women and what we hope to accomplish here. As a matter of fact, we have 45 sponsors and co-sponsors on our late-term ban. I think that speaks volumes in and of itself. We're going to work hard at Ohio Right to Life. We're going to pour everything we have into seeing these three bills passed in 2011 and to get it to the governor's desk. At this time, I have the honor of introducing Representatives Lynn, Slaby, and Representative Ron Young. I'm not sure if Senator Tim Riddell's with us yet, but to discuss the judicial bypass bill. And the aim of this critical bill is to ensure parents and parental rights of their children are being adhered to and met. I'm going to turn it over to these fine men.
Thank you. It's great to work with Right to Life to help young ladies and children. The parental bypass portion that we're presenting, Representative Slaby and I, currently under federal law, it's required that there's a parental bypass that young women seeking an abortion, if you will, can indeed, if they feel their parents will not grant them the divorce, they have the right to go before a judge and seek a bypass. And all they have to prove is that they're mature enough to get the bypass and also that it's in their best interest. Our legislation seeks to give the judges more guidance in how to make the call for these young ladies. And basically what it does is it raises the level just a bit. It gives them clear parameters with which to make that decision. It calls for for the young ladies to have to prove by clear and convincing evidence that they are indeed mature enough to make this critical decision. And also it asks the judges to determine if these young ladies have been prepped or not as to how to specifically answer the judge's questions. The idea being that the evaluation is supposed to determine the young lady's maturity, not how well she's memorized how to respond to specific questions the judges might ask. So that's basically what our legislation seeks to achieve. We have Lynn here as well.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to address the folks here today. My background is a judge in the 9th District Court of Appeals. One of the reasons that I'm so interested in this bill, in addition to trying to protect the children, both born and the unborn, is that we needed to set down some standards for the trial court judges to truly evaluate, as Representative Young said, whether or not that young individual is mature enough to make a decision that will have an emotional, physical impact on them the rest of their life. From a court Court of Appeals standpoint, I could go into a lot of legalese, which I have a tendency to do, and I try not to do that. It's important to the justice system, because in the justice system, it's not just the trial court that makes that decision on behalf of the young lady, but those decisions that are made by the trial judge can come up to the Court of Appeals. And on the Court of Appeals, I did have to make those decisions, whether or not the trial court judge did what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, at least in my opinion, unfortunately, there was no real guidance given to the trial court on how they should proceed to know whether or not that child was mature enough to make that decision, or whether there was clear and convincing evidence, not just preponderance of evidence, and there I go again with the legalese, but it gives them a standard by which to follow the rules of evidence within their court in a proceeding that is extremely important to the benefit of both this child and the unborn child, to know that that decision is founded on good fact basis and not just an undue influence by some other party or a third party that's not a parent or a guardian of that young child that is seeking the abortion. So when we got a case up at the Court of Appeals, we had very little, if anything, to review of whether or not that judge made the appropriate decision of the maturity of the child, to know the emotional and physical impacts, or to know whether or not the procedures were actually followed, because there was no standard by which, or I shouldn't say no standard, but practically a lack of standard by which we could judge that judge's decision, and that's what courts of appeals does, and that's what the Supreme Court does. So with this bill, there's going to be a standard sit down. The justice system is going to be able to work if, in fact, there is an appeal from the court's decision, and that decision will be reviewable in a standard that's set down by law in the state of Ohio. And I am happy to be a co-sponsor of this bill.
What we can do is we can hold questions till the end. It's from everyone in the audience. Thank you both, Representative Slaby and Young, for your support of this measure. The next bill that is being introduced for Ohio recollection bill movement has to do with the opt-out regarding our new federal health care law. Just this week, many people heard of the federal judge overruling only a portion of the federal health care law. There's still many, many issues as it relates to the federal health care law. What we've asked and sought the help and sponsorship of Representatives Danny Buck and Representatives Joe Roegner to assist us to ensure that Ohio is not included in any form of state exchange as it relates to the new health care law or any abortion funding for that. At this time, I'd like to ask Representative Danny Buck to come to the podium.
Okay, thank you, Mike. You know, not all of the state reps that are here today are going to say anything, but they're here to show their support. Maybe we start over here with the state reps. Just mention your name real quickly so everybody knows who's here.
John Adams.
Mike Heaney,
Andy Brenner.
Bill Bees,
Terry Booth. Joe Roegner.
Lynn Slaby.
Kristina Roegner.
Peter Beck, Jeff McClain.
We appreciate all you folks coming and showing your support for Right to Life. You know, the name of the organization is appropriate. Ohio, and then Right to Life. You know, we talk about in Ohio and nationally all of our rights. And right down the hallway, they've got the Ohio Project, a press conference going right now, talking about the right in the nation to have health insurance. It seems to me, though, before we talk about rights to health insurance, rights to a home, rights to everything, shouldn't we talk about perhaps a right to life? Maybe you ought to be alive before you get these other rights for health care and everything. So Mike, thank you for all that your organization does and for being here and allowing us to support you. And it's unfortunate we have to keep chipping away at all these things and defending right to life. You would think it would be inherent, perhaps, God's plan that we have a right to life. At any rate, the opt-out bill. Joe Roegner and myself introduced it last General Assembly and it didn't move anywhere. And I am so pleased that November 2nd, 2010, the voters sought a different direction for Ohio. Well, in fact, the nation. And that allows us to be here today with some certainty that Ohio Right to Life will have a place at the table we'll be able to move meaningful legislation in this state. And the opt-out bill is one of those bills that's meaningful. 30 states approximately have either passed a law or working on legislation to protect against federal dollars being used, taxpayer monies, to fund abortion. And this legislation is going to do that. Healthcare, Obamacare, if you will, that's the term I heard down the hallway at the Ohio Project. Many times they're referring to it as Obamacare. Do you remember the folks in Washington and across the nation? No federal money will be used for abortion. Remember that? The president said it. Congressman Greenhouse now in Cincinnati said it. Lots of people said it. But we're here today, aren't we? You know why? Because unless we opt out, there will be federal tax dollars used to fund abortions. And so I am pleased to bring this legislation forward with Representative Eager, and we've got a number of co-sponsors for the legislation, and we look forward to introducing it, having sponsor testimony, and then having folks come forward and testify as to the necessity of this to ensure and protect not only the Ohio taxpayer, but nationally, as we see 30 other states doing the same thing. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for the press being here. I know some of your colleagues are down the hallway still, but hopefully they'll get the information on this and be able to tell Ohio what the Ohio Right to Life and many in the legislature are doing to protect the right to life. Thank you.